Well, here we are. We're sitting around the table here at Sam and Becky's this morning, and we're just excited because Grandma and Aunt Mary are here to visit us for a little bit. And Sam was just taking this opportunity to just have some reflection on some of your memories, Mom, as a child growing up. And so, your grandmother here was born in 1925, and which was right at the beginning or the middle of the Depression. So now I know, Mom, you grew up on the farm, which was really different than farms today, right? Because Grandpa had everything.
Yeah, he raised hogs and cattle and sheep and raised all kinds of crops.
And did you have a favorite animal?
Chicken.
The chickens?
Because I didn't like cows.
Was it your job to get the chicken?
I always took care of the chickens, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So did you have to get up early in the morning before school and do that?
No, but the thing that I had to do, and that was later on, was my responsibility was to be sure the separator was washed before I went to school. And I couldn't do that until after we had breakfast. We couldn't have breakfast till Dad came in from milking the cows. So sometimes I didn't take the time to print to go to school like we did today, because the bus might have been going down the hill and on my way into the house.
So
what was the separator?
It's what you separated the
milk
from the cream.
Oh, okay.
And you put it in a tank on the top, and then there was 2 spouts that came out, and there was a bunch of discs in there, and you cranked the handle, and as you spun that around, it separated the milk, went one way, and the cream went into another. And that had to be washed every day.
Sure.
And that was my responsibility.
How many acres did Grandpa farm back then?
He didn't have a big farm. I imagine 80, 120. It wasn't. He never had a big farm because he didn't farm.
Right, they didn't farm.
Because he farmed with horses at first, and then finally he got.
did he have just one team of horses?
No, he had 3.
3 teams?
Mm-hmm.
And then he
Had Daisy, Maggie and Jakes, and Lori and Flory.
And they were all just working horses.
Yeah, they were just walking horses. And a lot of times if Dad was doing with the first team that I said, and then Denton and I could go out and he'd put us on the back of those and we'd ride with him as he was working in the field. You wouldn't do that today with your kids.
Yeah.
But you did then, and I think but you would sit up there on that horse and ride out in the field. Yeah.
So Mom, do you remember when you got electricity on the farm?
Yeah, that was a big deal.
How old were you? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I probably was maybe 6th, 7th grade.
Wow, that long.
And I remember we had the light fixtures. One of them had 3 little dishes in it that the bulbs fit in. And Mom started out with 25-watt bulbs. Because you go from a kerosene light or an Aladdin lamp, and you put a light bulb in there and you had 3 or 5 of them in it. I mean, that was a tremendous difference. But it was kind of fun because they did all the wiring and everything, and then they started at one farm and they turned it on, and then that person would call down the line and say, oh, we just got our lights on. And then the next farmer, we got ours on. And it just kind of went down the line as everybody was so excited, yeah.
So did the electricity come after the phone line? Did you have phones?
We had phones before that, yes. Yeah. We had the old-fashioned phone, you cranked it once, twice, or whatever. Yeah, it was fastened to the wall. Yeah, it was a party line. So if you wanted to know what was going on in the neighborhood, you heard the neighbor's phone ring, you'd run, pick it up, and see what was going on.
So where's Facebook?
So after the electricity came, then was the next thing you got then like the electrical icebox?
No,
The
see,
refrigerator?
up until then we had icebox. Yeah, once we got that, then we had, we had refrigerator.
Yeah. So like when you got that chunk of ice, how long did that last?
We generally have to get it at least twice a week. We generally get it on Sunday morning when we went to Sunday school, and then we would get one during the middle of the week. And they'd come in 50, 7,500 pound blocks. Yeah. And that was a regular industry out there at Lake Okoboji in the wintertime when they would harvest ice. They would go out and place where we bought it had like a cave back underneath the hill. Then they put it in there and cover it with sawdust. Then they would keep, and they put, I don't know how they knew, but they saw big chunks and then haul it down and store it away. Yeah. But that was a big treat. And I remember the first Christmas after we had lights, Mom had a red wreath that was like that velour stuff around with one candle in it. But oh, that was so pretty because that was the first time we'd ever had anything like that. And then we got to have electric lights on the Christmas tree, because otherwise it was all candles.
Yeah.
And so we only got to see that lit for just a short while because of,
The fire.
Yeah. Yep. But it was fun.
So William, how old were you when you met Grandpa?
Well, your dad was raised down in southwest Iowa. I always kid him about he was the hillbilly from down there. And Grandpa and Grandma Frazier lost the farm. I mean, they had 2 years, they didn't have any crop. And Grandpa said, we just can't do this anymore. So they moved up to Lake Okoboja. And Grandpa worked at the Methodist campgrounds up there on the lawn. And then that was your dad helped him do that. Then we went to a country consolidated school, which was unusual in that day and age. Instead of 8 grades, it was a school with all 12 grades. And so they needed a janitor, and they hired Max's dad to come and be janitor. So I was a sophomore in high school, and he was a junior in high school when they moved out there. And that was when we met. And I remember my sister said, oh, that Frazier boy, he's so cute. I'd sure set my eyes for him. I said, you can have him if you want him. I don't want him. But when the summer before I was a junior and before he was a senior, we had our first date. It was on Father's Day, June 15th.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, I like Daddy's version of that one.
When he came to pick me up, my grandma and Grandpa Wonder were there, and my Uncle Herman and his kids were there. And I thought, if he could go through that, why, he probably will come back again. But no, that was when we never dated anybody else after that, neither one of us. That was it.
But what happened on the date?
We had an accident. We had gone to the Luther League convention over in Armstrong. We stopped in Arnold's Park. The first and last time I ever rode a roller coaster, we rode it twice, once right after the other. And there were 6 of us kids in that car. And Warren got to showing off. And he came around a corner too fast, lost it in the gravel. We went in and pivoted all the way around and ended up on top. Max got his head cut open. The other kid got hurt. And the keys broke off in the ignition, and the ignition was on. So it was a miracle. That's what the police said, was a miracle. We kids, didn't get worse than we were. Yeah. And so we walked up to the neighbors, which probably was a quarter of a mile away, and used their phone and called people to come and get us. But yeah.
But I remember Daddy used to say, and I was never the same after that.
That's what everybody at school said. You guys had that accident, you got some mixed up, you didn't even know what you were doing. That's it.
It was never the same again. That's what Daddy would always say.
And the kid that was driving the car was our best man at our wedding. He was stationed at the same place down at Pilot, Texas, where Max was. And they didn't know they were on the base together until one day they happened to meet each other.
Huh.
And so Warren was our best man. Yeah.
So how long did you date before Daddy asked you to marry him?
Don't ask me years, because I don't know those. But I graduated in 43. Your dad graduated in 42. And I graduated in 43. And of course, that was during the war years, so your dad was in the military.
So Grandpa went right into the military right after?
He started going to school over in Esterville at a junior college. And then in January, he enlisted. By enlisting, he could go into the Air Force, and he got to go to meteorology school. Then we got through that school, they closed it. They didn't need anymore. So then he's when he got to Bombardier School. Yeah. Yeah. And so it was during that war. The war was, well, the reason we got married in October like we did is we thought Grandpa was going to get sent with the occupation to Japan. And if you were married before, then the wife could go over. But if you weren't, you couldn't. I couldn't have gone over. So we decided we wanted to get married. We'd waited long enough. And we got married in October, and he got his discharge in December, which we didn't realize at that time.
What year? October what?
45.
Must have been.
Because Jack was born in January 45, so, yeah.
And so, yeah. We were married in Pio, Texas, where there's nothing but mesquite bush and coyotes. That's all it was. Air Force Base. He was a bombardier in a B-29. Yeah.
So when you were a child growing up, Mom, like, did you go to church?
We did. We went a lot of times to Sunday school with the neighbors down the road. They'd stop and pick us up. Then there was a minister that Mom and Dad got listening to on the radio station. And Dad really liked him. And even when he was working in the field, he would bring his things to a halt and come into the house, listen to that program, and then go back out. It was during that time Dad realized it was his responsibility to raise his family. But as far as, actually being like we think today in a Christian home, it was Christian but different,
So you didn't grow up going to church
No.
like today. So when did you realize that you needed more than just awareness of God?
I think I always had a sense of that, because I remember at Christmas, we always read the Christmas story. We always prayed at mealtime. We always said our prayers at night when we went to bed as kids growing up. So it isn't that it was ever not there. It just wasn't like today, And
So when you and Dad got married, did you talk about that? I mean, did you guys talk about whether or
I don't
not?
think we did, honey. No, I don't.
So what happened that made you and Dad come to the point where?
When we moved to Spencer and lived down there, and Max Jr. was little, we went to this church one Sunday and we took Max Jr. Well, it was like we were welcome, but our child wasn't. I mean, it was a kind of a funny arrangement. Then we met some people who went to a Reformed church. And so I would stay home with the kids, and Max would go to church, and then he'd take me and he'd stay home with the kids. Then all of a sudden we realized these other couples were taking their children to church. So what we had sensed at that one church was that church. And so when we got to that Reformed church, and that's where we began. Then we talked about it. We liked the pastor so well. We said, we wondered if we would keep on going if he left. He left, and we still kept on going. Well, about that time, Grandpa lost his job, and we had to move. So we moved down to Carlisle. And how we connected with this little missionary Baptist church, I don't know. And it was little. Oh my goodness, it was a small. You could envision years ago where the women sat with the kids on this side and the men sat.
Wow.
And there was the pews probably would be three people maybe at the most wide. I mean, it was a little old missionary Baptist church. And we started going, and the man who was a pastor was Millie and Madeline Nelson's uncle from there in town. And he was a lay pastor, and so good. And we went, but we lived in Carlisle 1 year. Nobody ever came and rang our doorbell to visit on us. We never, we were just there. But when we look back, we know that God did that because we had to see that we weren't depending on anybody else. I mean, we were welcome, but not included. Is that the right way to say it? And so The day we left, we were loading up to move. Ed Nelson came over and he said, I believe when you folks go to Boone, you'll enjoy going to the free church. And it was during that time, and as far as saying, oh, we went forward today, this is it. Grandpa and I never had that. In fact, it bothered us a long time until we went and talked to Pastor Berger, and he said, you know, God doesn't save everybody the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But we knew our lives were changing.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the biggest thing was I was scared to death to stay alone at night with the kids. In fact, I would work all night long just not to have to go to bed because I would be so afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally that all left.
Mm-hmm.
It just, you know, vanished. So we started into the free church, and that's, yeah. So, and we were grateful that we came to the Lord when we did because of our kids,
Yeah.
you know? Because it could have pivoted the other way just as easily as not. But as far as saying, I could write in my Bible, this is the day, the hour, the minute, and that. It wasn't that way.
Yeah.
So did you and Dad talk a lot about your relationship with God? Because I remember as a kid growing up, it always seemed like you were the same. Like
We did, and it's,
you grew at the same rate. I mean,
yeah. The thing we've always been so grateful for was that we were both saved. It happened at the same time. Not one and then the other, but it was together. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So we had kind of a together life, I guess. Yeah.
So who in your life? Because obviously, Mom, you and Dad have an incredible relationship with the Lord that I know that impacted my life. Because I saw the reality of it. I didn't see. I'm looking back at it, and I'm probably feel the same way. I never felt like church was important, but God was important in our home. So, but there must have been significant people who helped contribute to that growth in your lives.
Mm-hmm.
The Bergrens, Mrs. Hughes, John and Mabel. Oh my goodness, what would we have done without John and Mabel?
Tom and Mabel were adopted grandparents.
Yeah.
We had
When you went to school with Lois,
Yeah.
you called each other almost cousins. I can be an almost cousin. We got the same grandpa.
So, but I mean, how did they influence you? Because I don't remember like, I remember John and Mabel just being great people, but I don't remember them being like preaching or anything. So how did they influence you?
It was the consistency of their life. They were always the same. And Mrs. Booth was a little lady, little bitty lady, and we were over there one night, and she said, we hung the storm windows today. Now that was when you had your windows and you had to hook them on the outside and bring them. And she said, and you'd have to go up a ladder to do the second floor. And she was an elderly lady. And she said, we hung the window. I thought, well, who helped you? She said, I just said, God, you take your corner, I'll take my corner. And she said, we hung the storm windows. And she made this statement. Her daughter-in-law said to her, how real is Jesus to you? She said, just as real as you are standing there by me. Mm-hmm. And that was, when you saw lives like that, and we were so fortunate when we came to town with our family, that was the kind of people that took us in. Mm-hmm. They weren't flashy, showy people, but as you watch their life, Malcolm and Lloyd and those people, yeah, but weren't their lives consistent?
Yeah.
When they were, no. You'd say to Ann May and Herman Landholm, how are you? We're thankful. That was their reply. They were always thankful. So I think...
Mr. Scow.
Yeah. They were...
Yeah.
Mary and Carl McKenzie.
Yeah.
As you kids got older, they were a tremendous influence on our lives. Yeah.
I want to go back, Mom. I want you to tell the story about when you were, just going way back, when you were a child and you had the tornado.
Oh, that was so scary.
Yeah, tell that story about what that was like, because you were at school, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. school, and this storm came up, and they put us down. Our school was the basement, the lower air level wasn't a full basement. It was about half, and then the rest was windows. And they put us all kids all down there in that what we call the gym. But it had windows probably half the size of those. But that tornado went over, and I can remember hearing the stuff hit the windows, and then afterwards you saw in the building, it lifted the roof up, moved it over, and set it back down again. The school buses were parked out in the driveway, ready to load the kids up to go home, and it just pushed them right straight down and into the ditch. Then we got out of the building, and as it hit Lake Okoboji, you could see the water spout that it caused to happen. And we went home and we said to Mom and Dad, we looked kind of scared and white, Sis and I. And we said, well, we've been in a tornado. We've never had one up there before. And the folks said, you couldn't be. We said, well, we were, because Martin's place isn't even there anymore. It was all gone. You know, and it started clear down by Everly. It was the spring of the year when all the livestock, the big feeder calves were in the lots, and they lost so much stuff. And then it went on clear up to Jackson, Minnesota. But that was it. And it took straw and drove it into doors, glass. It's freaky what it can do. But if that building would have collapsed, we would have been, most of us killed.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, yeah. That's why I kind of like that Armistice Day storm when it snowed so bad, you know. It had been such beautiful weather and things were.
So when you were a kid, Mom, and the weather would be bad and it would snow really bad, did you just not go to school? Did your parents just say, no, you're not going to school today?
Well, we couldn't get there.
You couldn't get there.
Because the roads were blocked. Yeah. And in the spring of the year, I thought of this the other day. A lot of times the road, they say now, you know, just on a hard surface. And they would be back there. And Dad would have to take us, because we lived on a hard road. And he had to take us down to the corner with the horses. So we could get down there to catch the bus, and then he'd have to come back with a team of horses to take us home. Yeah. Because we lived on a mud road. When the frost went out, the bottom went out, and that was it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that winter that it snowed so much, we could step over the light wires.
The light wires?
No, not the light wires.
The fence wires.
Telephone wires. Yeah. And that time Sis and I got to go to town with, I don't remember who the other farmer was that went with Dad, because the farmers would take turns that 6 weeks of going to town and picking up things that you might need and picking up people's mail and that. And we got to go along. Mom heated up a rock in the oven, and we had a horse rope, and we bundled up, and we got to go to town with Dad in the bobsled. I don't know how come we got to do. I suppose Mom couldn't handle us in the hospital.
Some things have changed.
She had to get us out. That's everything I could think of. Because I remember they cut through. They'd go through. Couldn't go down the road because a lot of it was drifted too much, even with the horses.
Yeah.
And so they'd go into fields and cut fences and go around the snowdrifts. Yeah. Then we got to see my grandma and that. But that was kind of an exciting adventure, go to town. And then you'd buy whatever, bring home whatever the neighbors might need. But you had everything.
Yeah.
I mean, Mom and Dad in the fall of the year would buy probably 200 pounds of flour.
Wow.
And 200 pounds of sugar. Come in 100-pound bags. They stored them upstairs because you knew you may not get to town. And so you stocked up on that stuff. I suppose that's why today I feel like if I don't have extra 5 pounds of flour in the house, I'm going to starve, because that was the way But we had everything. We had our own eggs, our own milk, our own cream. And the folks butchered every winter a calf or a cow or whatever, and then a hog. And so we had all of that. So those years when people were going through the Depression, we didn't know as kids was as bad as it was, and everybody else was in the same boat. And so, yeah, but we never missed a meal because everybody canned, and you put away, you raised potatoes, and you had your squashes that you would keep all winter long. So you had all of that. You didn't have to, like we do now. We don't have gardens, so we've got to keep that stuff on hand. We didn't back then because we had everything.
So how many miles was it from the farm to town? Now are you talking about Milford as a town? Or Spencer as a town? Milford as a town.
Yeah. It'd be awfully hard to go up to Spencer.
Yeah. But I guess when I remember Milford, we went to Spencer because there was nothing in Milford really for.
So, Mom, if you were to give us a statement to all of your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, and to think the legacy will go on to great-great-grandchildren someday, what would you tell them? What would be the single most thing that you have learned in life that you would want them to know?
The one thing I would want them to know, and I think of this, and this is what I pray. I don't care how successful they are, how much education they have, or what their life is like. But if they're not walking with Jesus, all that's just junk. There's nothing there. So it's our walk with the Lord that needs to be there. Yeah, and that's your responsibility to bring them to that. As I look at these little people and I look at the world around me, my prayer is, God, just take them and hold them tight. And it don't make any difference how wealthy you are, how poor you are. If you walk with the Lord, it's okay. That to me is the most important thing it could be.
That's good.
Yeah, that would be.
I agree.
That would be what I would want them to know. Yeah.